was still smarting after the whacking the Packers had administered to the AFL champion Oakland Raiders in the second Super Bowl, played in January 1968. To me, the Packers under Vince Lombardi were like the New York Yankees under Casey Stengel: methodical, ruthless, unbeatable, and on all counts, unlovable. But when I read Instant Replay later in 1968, Kramer and Schaap forced me to reconsider that, not merely because Kramer himself emerged from its pages as entirely likable and admirable, but also because their portrait of Lombardi brought out the human side of a man who, from a distance, seemed like a martinet, pure and simple. Astonishingly, considering the great success and high reputation it enjoyed, Instant Replay has been out of print for years. This seems even more astonishing after a second, or third, or fourth reading, because the book has lost absolutely nothing over almost 4 decades. It is funny, smart, evocative, honest, and unpretentious. Its prose is Kramer's, dictated into a tape recorder and regularly mailed to Schaap as the season progressed. Schaap's role was to organize, to condense, to clarify, and to punctuate, but he did not have to polish Jerry Kramer's phrases or prompt his thoughts. All in all, it's a good job of collaboration between unprofessional writer and professional journalist, as I can recall reading, and it is as vivid and engaging now as it was in 1968. So this new edition of Instant Replay is especially welcome. It arrives at a time when professional football has replaced baseball as the country's most popular sport, if not as the national pastime. The game has accumulated enough history by now so that past triumphs and failures can be viewed with some perspective. The Green Bay team on which Kramer played was the second pro football dynasty, the first being the Cleveland Browns of the early to mid-1950s, and it has achieved a degree of mythic status that no other pro football team has enjoyed before or since. In part, this is because the Packers were then, as now, the only small city team in the National Football League, in part because they so emphatically dominated the league, in part because they were an uncommonly appealing group of men, and in large part because they were coached by Vince Lombardi. Not merely do we now have this opportunity to reacquaint ourselves with those storied Packers in this best of all pro football books. Thanks to Kramer, we can hear as well as read about what it was like to be a Packer in the mid-1960s. Not long ago, he found in his garage tape recordings he had made for Schaap during the 1967 season. He has edited them, supplemented them with his own interviews with several of his former teammates, and released them as a 2-CD set called Jerry Kramer's Inside the Locker Room: The Lost Tapes of the 1967 Championship Season. They must be listened to carefully, as ambient noise in the locker room is considerable. It includes the pronounced sound of toilets flushing. But players can be heard giving each other low-key pep talks before the Super Bowl against the Raiders, followed by Lombardi's own brief and subdued but emphatic speech to the team. Kramer's interviews with the old vets are revealing and often delightful, especially a hilarious conversation with Doug Hart about the semifinal NFL championship game against the Los Angeles Rams, coached by the tight-sphinctered George Allen. Kramer was 31 years old during the 1967 season. He'd been with the Packers since graduating from the University of Idaho in 1958. His signing bonus was $250. He played for 11 seasons, was All-Pro 6 times, and in 1970 was selected for the NFL's All-50-Year team. Inexplicably and absolutely unjustly, he has yet to be elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He retired after the 1968 season and moved to Idaho, where he continued to pursue various business ventures with considerable success. From that vantage point, he was able for a time to look with pride to Atlanta and Tennessee, where his son Jordan played linebacker in the early 2000s for the Falcons and the Titans. The league in which Jordan Kramer played bears only limited resemblance to Jerry Kramer's. For one thing, it's much bigger. It absorbed the AFL in the 1970s and added expansion teams thereafter, doubling from 16 teams to 32. Black players, a distinct if prominent minority in Kramer's day, dominate the league today.